So obviously all this impeachment stuff kicks off next week. Something else, though, as well, that actually could be a lot more important. The president will be sitting down with the Turkish President Erdogan, certainly a controversial figure in his own right. Now, all this at a time when a lot of people say, should the United States president be meeting with Erdogan at all, or any nefarious character? Well, there's precedent for that. And this image, or we look at FDR with Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin, is an indication of that. Been there, done that, and historically it's made a difference for this country. Bet Bear is with me now, not only the anchor special report, but this best-selling 3 days at the brink, FDR's daring gamble to win World War II, which included that meeting with, again, the aforementioned Joseph Stalin. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Neil.
And congratulations on the book's great success.
Thank you.
I think it started with your appearance on Fox Business.
100%.
Away we go.
That's actually where it just set off.
Exactly, without it, yeah. Let me ask you a little bit about this. The president's getting a heap of scorn, an even meeting with Erdogan. First of all, what do you make of that?
Listen, he has decided, the president has, that his foreign policy will be to meet with even bad guys. And the Turkish leader does not have a great track record about how he's dealing with us and the U.S. We just saw it with the interaction with the Kurds and the action across the border in Syria. However, there are things that they have talked about that the U.S. and Turkey could deal on. Remember, they're a NATO ally.
Right.
And despite all of the bad things that have happened, and they're numerous, President Trump believes that it's worth sitting down with him. It does track with previous leaders.
Right.
And you reference FDR and Churchill and Stalin. Churchill and FDR believed that it was imperative that they sit down with Stalin at the end of World War II. There was a chance that we as a country might not win the war. And they said, we're going to deal with this devil.
1943, things were looking dicey, right? It was not a one war yet.
At the brink, because Hitler was on the move in Europe.
Yeah.
We were iffy in the Pacific against Japan, and they determined that, yes, we know this devil, he's horrible, but we need to sit down with him and get him on our side.
But what's interesting is what's fascinating about the way you recreate those events on that day in the meeting is even Churchill was concerned that they were getting a little too cozy. And you, in researching this, is that I had been struck by how friendly FDR was towards Stalin, a dictator known killer. At the moment, he was almost obsequious. Winston Churchill, no admirer of Stalin, was affronted by FDR's charm offensive. So, you know, you weren't alone in that thought.
Yeah, well, Churchill really raised some red flags because he believed Stalin had this ambition for communism, which eventually was realized after FDR dies and Churchill is removed from office.
He just didn't trust it.
Yeah,
right?
And FDR, I think, looking back, was looking through a prism of we need to win the war.
First things first.
He thought he could corral and contain Stalin in the post-war. He died after Yalta, and
just a couple of months later,
never realized that.
Let me ask you a couple of years later. Let me ask you a little bit about talking to people who even some of your top aides, military types, say you shouldn't. You mentioned briefly, Donald Trump makes brief mentions in your book here, but that you do go over Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, the two summits, both of which you covered, a third one that could be in the works, and the criticism about meeting with him. But it happens again and again. It's an issue that makes some uncomfortable.
It does. And there's, you know, foreign policy experts who debate whether it's worth doing it if you don't know the end game of what you're going to get out of it. But, you know, Ronald Reagan believed that, too.
Right.
And it was trust but verify. And his diplomacy with Gorbachev obviously sees a breakthrough and ends the Cold War. Trump obviously hasn't seen that.
But not before things fell apart, right?
They fell apart in Reykjavik.
Right.
They fell apart numerous times in those summits. I think President Trump looks at Kim Jong-un as the possibility. It just hasn't been realized yet. And whether a third summit happens or not, we haven't seen the North Koreans live up to what they've even talked about at these first two.
You don't say this, but the leap here that I've made is the president seems to have a fondness for roguish type characters, or maybe admires how they hang on to power, whatever. Is that a detriment to his danger, or a risk?
You know, that's a great question. I think he likes the powerful folks, but obviously they're dictators. And I asked him on Air Force One in this interview with him, you know, he said he's a killer. Well, he is a killer, Kim Jong-un. He's killed his own family members. He's killed lots of people. But yet he still, President Trump, sees the prospect of something coming together.
All right, their continued success with this. 3 days at the brink. Is there going to be more to this series? Are we wrapping it up here?
I'm going to spend 3 days with my family.
Yeah, do they sound familiar?